Hello, 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 guys. For those of you who are new here, my name is Lauren Da Silva, and I am essentially a life coach's life coach. And so one of the things that I just love about what I get to do is helping life coaches move past their personal problems before they become professional problems, right? Or if they're already becoming professional problems, to help them mitigate that and heal personally so that they can flourish professionally. And today, I thought I would share with you something that happened to me last week, that happened to a friend over the weekend, and that happened to another friend this week. I won't tell you who they are, but I'll use myself as like the shining example of what happens when we get the big and scaries. The big and scaries is what I call those feelings. This is what I call them to my kids, like with my kids when we talk about them. The big and scaries are feelings that feel so big that they're going to burst out of us, and that they feel so scary that they make us want to hide away from ourselves. So that's how I talk about these kind of emotions to my kids. But I also know that as grown-ups, as adults, that sometimes we had no one talking to us about our feelings as kids. And so we need that kind of language because it helps us figure out where we are. Anyway, back to the story. So I don't know if you've ever had one of these weeks or one of these moments, but I did last week. And basically it started like perfectly fine, great week, feeling like the wind is behind me, meaning it's pushing me forward, momentum, grace and ease, all the good things that we kind of love and pray for and hope for in a great week. Until Thursday, round about midday, when I feel like out of nowhere, I just got knocked right off the horse that I was galloping on. Like, so the image I have of myself last week in my head was I'm on the beach on a horse. We're riding off into the sunset. And then all of a sudden, a big wave kind of knocks me off my big, beautiful horse, rolls me around in the sand. I end up with sand on my pants, sand on my shirt, sand in my hair. And then just as I'm coming up for air, the waves come and just knock me over. And I do one of those tumbly things in the ocean, and then with more sand all over the place. And that is a great illustration of what the big and scaries can do. So those big, scary feelings. And so I kind of was in a funk the whole of Friday. Not the whole of Friday, the whole of Thursday. Funk being what I was feeling was fear. That was inside. What was coming out was anxiousness, irritability, frustration, and even up until the point, some aggression towards my loved ones. Because when I'm feeling anxious and irritable, I tend to lash out more. It does not excuse what I did. It explains it. I was just getting kind of mean and angry and jealous and frustrated. But more than anything, what I was feeling was fear. I did not want to face that I was feeling afraid. I did not want to feel the feeling of being afraid. And so I just kept on going out throughout my day being mean until I got to a point where I couldn't anymore and decided to face it. And so I had one of my friends reached out to me over the weekend, let me know that she was experiencing something similar. And another dear friend reached out to us this morning and just shared about how disorientating these big, overwhelming emotions like fear is one of them in particular. Sadness or grief is another one that I find is very common. And basically, what feels like the impending oncoming of these emotions turns into dread. And just experiencing that the emotion is on its way becomes it's derailing, I guess, disorientating and derailing of like everything that we're working on. And so if you're watching now if you're watching the replay, I'd love for you to do a hashtag replay and let me know, have you ever experienced emotions so powerful that they completely disorientated and derailed you from what you were focusing on or for what you were trying to do? Have you ever experienced an emotion welling up inside of you that was so big and scary that it derailed your progress, that it became an obstacle to you achieving your goal for the day, for the week, for the month? Sometimes that happens. So have you ever experienced your emotions in that way, where they literally become a force, or you experience your emotions as a force working against you, working against your goals, working against your progress? If you have, put that in the comments. Say, yes, me too. Yes, I've experienced that. Yes, I do experience that. Maybe you're like, yes, that's where I am right now. Please help me. I'm being tossed around and thrown off my horse and rolling around in the sand, because this video is for you. This video is for you. And so here's some things. So I had my friend reach out to me this morning. I told my friend 4 things that I know about her emotions and that she needs to know to give her some perspective and to get her through the experience of her emotion. And so these are 4 things that I think you need to know if you're experiencing emotions that are so big and scary that they're derailing and disorientating you and becoming an obstacle to you achieving your goals. Okay, number 1. I don't have any fancy subtitles today because I just needed to get this done. Number 1, what you feel is not who you are, where you're going, or who God is. Did you hear that? What you're feeling right now, or the feeling that is welling up inside of you, that feeling is not who you are. That feeling is not where you are. That feeling is not where it's not even where you're going. And that feeling is certainly not who God is and how God feels about you. This is very, very important to know. One of the reasons why our emotions are so powerful is because we suppress and ignore them. So the more we suppress and ignore our emotions, the more powerful they become. I have no idea where I was going with that thought. And one of the reasons, so they become powerful when we ignore them, and we ignore them because there is some faulty thinking about emotions that leads us to think that if I'm feeling this, then this means that this is who I am, that this is where I am, that this is where I'm going, and this is the truth that God thinks, feels, and believes about me. That is not true. What you're feeling is not who you are, it is not where you are, it is not where you're going, and it is certainly not what God feels about you. It's an emotion. The next thing I want you to know is, so one of the reasons why emotions become so overpowering, we ignore them. Why do we ignore them? Why do we push up against our emotions? When we don't, emotions are like waves. They come and they get really terrifying at the point at which they're cresting and maybe even breaking, right? If you've ever been stuck under a wave that's breaking, it can be quite a tumble, underwater. But once it's broken, it's gone. One of the reasons we don't allow that natural process to happen, at least as Christians or from a Christian worldview, what I see and what I've noticed is that we tend to think that our emotions, or that experiencing our emotions, is an act of disbelief. For example, when I'm feeling afraid, like I was last week, one of the reasons why I, for most of the day at least, refused to allow myself to feel afraid was because there is part of my programming, part of my theology, part of what I learned in my faith education and discipleship has been that when you feeling feelings like this shows that you don't trust God. or you feeling feelings like this shows that you're committing the sin of unbelief. And that is not true. Why? Okay, so I've told you 2 things that feelings are not. Feelings are not who you are. They're not where you are. They're not where you're going. They're not who God is. Feelings, or big scary feelings, are also not necessarily an act of disbelief or sin or anything like that, right? What you're feeling might be is it might be trying to tell you, or an indication or an indicator of what you need from yourself, what you need from God, and what you need to know. Why do I say that? Here's what I tell my kids all the time. Hey, are you feeling sad? When you're feeling sad, that's your body's way of telling you that you need comfort. And so what I say to my kids all the time is, when you're feeling sad, don't hide. When you're feeling sad, don't pretend that you're not sad. When you're feeling sad, find someone you trust and ask them for a hug. Find someone you trust and ask them if you can speak to them. And I always say to them, your sadness is a sign that you need comfort. Your anger is a sign, or could be a sign, that you're feeling powerless and you need to be reconnected with your power and your agency or justice. Your fear is probably a sign that you need to be reconnected to hope. They are not, like, fear is not a sign that you don't believe, or fear is not a sign that you're committing the sin of disbelief, or whatever your theology is around that. Your fear could very well be a sign that you just need to be reconnected to the source of your hope, right? And when we don't allow ourselves to feel fear, I know that like I said earlier, I need to catch myself when I'm doing it, when I'm starting to get irritable and anxious with my people. Usually when I trace that back, oh, this is about me feeling afraid about something. Then what I need in that moment is to feel my fear and reconnect to my source of hope. Your emotions may be a sign pointing you to what you need from yourself, from others, and from God. They're there to help you know something that you're not in touch with in that moment. And the last thing that I want to say is that, as disorientating and scary as our the big and scaries can be, or have been, right, in our lives, these emotions don't have to be disorientating. They can actually be reorientating. And so a lot of the times we don't want to feel our fear, we don't want to feel our sadness, we don't want to feel grief, because we've had very bad experiences with emotions and whatever context those emotions were felt in. For example, when I feel fear, a huge part of the context of the emotion of fear for me is loneliness, isolation, and abandonment. And so I know that what I'm mostly avoiding when I'm feeling my fear, when I don't want to feel my fear, or acknowledge it at least, what I'm actually avoiding is feelings of abandonment and loneliness and isolation. And that's disorientating. It's hurtful. It's painful. But our emotions don't have to be, or the experience of our emotions don't have to be, a replay of all the times we've ever felt that, or the worst, or replay of the worst time or the worst experience we've had with that emotion. There can be something reorientating about those emotional experiences when we learn the information, when we learn the skills we need, when we're willing to practice those skills or put that information into practice, and when we're willing to keep practicing our emotions and the experience of our emotions in a safe, helpful way, can actually be reorientating to our life, faith, and relationships, rather than disorientating. So here's what I want to tell you that I told my friends and that what I needed to tell myself on Thursday. Lauren, you can put off feeling the big and scaries for as long as you want. But for as long as you put it off, you're going to struggle to make progress and you're going to struggle to move forward. You can press pause on all the other things that are going on in your life right now, and you can give yourself permission and make space for you to feel for the sake of your well-being. Your emotion is just like a wave. It's going to come. You're going to feel the size, the magnitude of it, but then it's going to fade away. And at that point of fading away, what used to feel disorientating, traumatic, and terrifying can actually feel refreshing, rejuvenating, and reorientating, because you actually have the skills and you've practiced these skills and you have the ability to feel your feelings in a safe place. And so what I want to tell you about this is that all of us assume that, like I said earlier, life is just going to be a replay of all the things that have gone wrong before. But emotional well-being and the skills you need to experience emotional well-being are things that you can learn, practice, and master. It is not about personality, it's not about temperament, and it's definitely not just about how you were raised and what you experienced in your childhood. That you can intentionally learn, practice, and master these skills, no matter where you started. So my alarm going off is a sign to me that our time is up. And so I would like to invite you to join it. If you're watching this on my Facebook profile, I would like to invite you to, or YouTube, I guess, I'd like to invite you to consider joining an incredible community that I've started for life coaches and other servant-hearted leaders and professionals. It's called Support and Solutions for Mompreneurs, for Overwhelm Mompreneurs, and I'd love to invite you to do that. If you're in that group already, or maybe if you're not, and you resonated strongly with what I said, and when I told you about the skills that you could, for emotional well-being, that you can learn, practice, and master, and you were like, what are those skills? Okay, I'm ready to write it down. And then I said, time is up, we got to go. If you're hungry to learn those skills, if you're sick and tired of having every single big, scary emotional experience you have completely derail you from your progress and the good things that you're called to do in the world, then you should consider my Mompreneur mentorship program. It is basically a masterclass in this subject matter, except expanded, in depth, and yeah, I don't have time to tell you about all the amazing things that is happening there. And so I just like to tell you about that. It is by invitation only, which means that I need to have a conversation with you about whether or not it really is the right thing for you. I don't ever want to sell someone something that is actually not right for them or won't be helpful to them. And so I would love to tell you about it. I'd love you to ask your questions. And I'd like to extend an invitation to you to participate in that program. And so if that's you, feel free to contact me, feel free to comment, and I will reach out to you when you give me permission to do that. Anyway, you guys, I hope that you have an incredible day. Remember that you have whatever you need, and you know how to find whatever you need. Trust yourself and know that human flourishing in all of its forms is completely available to you. Yeah, that's all I want to say. I hope you guys have an incredible day, and I'll see you around. Bye.